Welcome back to Be Inspired from Life. When we hear the word empty, we treat it like a dead end. Empty room, empty bank account, empty heart, empty space. We've been trained to believe that emptiness is failure, that if there's nothing there, then nothing can happen. But the universe doesn't agree with that definition, not even close. At the smallest level of reality, where atoms build everything you can see and touch, there's a shocking truth. Almost all of it is empty space. The chair you're sitting on, the phone in your hand, your own body, mostly space. And yet it doesn't feel empty, does it? You don't fall through the floor, you don't drift apart. Life holds its shape. So right away the universe is teaching us something we forgot. Empty does not mean powerless. What we call emptiness is often just something we don't yet understand. Inside that nothingness between atoms, there is motion, energy, tension, vibration, forces so precise and so strong that they create the illusion of solidity. There is no dead space in nature, only active space, only potential at work. And if that's true at the foundation of reality, then it has to be true in our lives too. Because there are moments when life strips you down. Moments when the noise fades, when the job is gone, the relationship is gone, the certainty is gone. And you look around and say, there's nothing left. But what if that space isn't a punishment? What if it's preparation? We fear emptiness because it makes us sit with ourselves. No distractions, no applause, no labels, just you and the silence. But silence is where truth speaks. That gap, that uncomfortable pause, that stretch of uncertainty, it's not empty, it's loaded. Loaded with the chance to reset, to rethink, to rebuild without the weight of what no longer fits. Think about it. Every breath begins with an empty lung. Every note of music is shaped by silence. Every comeback story starts in a moment where someone had nothing left to lose. The space comes first. The meaning comes later. We rush to fill the gaps too quickly. We fill them with noise, with habits, with people who don't align with who we're becoming. But nature doesn't rush. The universe allows space to exist so something stronger can form. Pressure builds in the unseen. Alignment happens quietly. Growth starts where no one is clapping. That empty space you're standing in right now, the one that scares you, that's not absence, that's invitation. An invitation to ask better questions, an invitation to let go of the version of yourself that needed constant validation. An invitation to discover what holds you together when nothing external is propping you up. At the atomic level, things don't touch the way we think they do. They respond, they resist, they interact through invisible forces. And in the same way, your life is not held together by what you can see, titles, money, approval, but by what's unseen. Your discipline, your integrity, your faith in motion before results, your willingness to stand in the unknown without running from it. That's what fills the space, strength you didn't know you had, clarity that only comes when distractions fall away, purpose that doesn't need permission to exist. So the next time life feels hollow, don't panic. Don't rush to cover it up. Stand there, breathe, listen. Because emptiness is not the end of the story. It's the place where the story gets rewritten. And when you finally understand that, you stop fearing the space, and you start becoming what it was waiting for all along. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Because once you realize that emptiness isn't nothing, the next question is obvious. If things aren't really touching, then what's holding everything together? What keeps this world from flying apart? What keeps you standing when life hits hard and there's no visible support beneath your feet? The answer is invisible forces. At the atomic level, the reason matter holds its shape isn't because particles are locked together like bricks in a wall. They never actually touch. What keeps them in place are forces you can't see, fields of energy, attraction and repulsion, balance and tension working in perfect coordination. You don't see them, but you live inside their effects every second of your life. Ignore them, and the whole illusion of solidity disappears. And life works the same way. We're taught to trust what we can measure. Titles, paychecks, status, numbers in a bank account, followers on a screen. But when everything you can see gets taken away, something else steps in, something quieter, something deeper. The things that truly hold you together were never visible to begin with. Discipline doesn't show up on a resume, but it decides whether you win or lose when no one is watching. Character doesn't make headlines, but it determines who you become when temptation knocks. Belief can't be weighed or photographed, but it can carry you through seasons that logic alone cannot survive. Invisible doesn't mean imaginary. Think about the moments when you almost gave up, the nights when nothing made sense, when the plan fell apart and the future went dark. What kept you moving? It wasn't applause, it wasn't certainty, it was something internal, a quiet refusal to quit, a sense that your story wasn't finished yet, a voice that said, "Get up." One more step. That force didn't announce itself. It didn't demand recognition. It just held you together. We underestimate these forces because they don't shout. But the strongest things in this universe don't need to. Gravity doesn't make noise, yet it keeps planets in orbit. Values don't trend online, yet they anchor a life. Love doesn't obey equations, yet it changes the direction of everything it touches. And here's the truth most people miss. When your visible structures fail, your invisible ones get tested. When the job is gone, when the title fades, when the applause stops, what's left? That's when you find out what's really been holding you up all along. That's why hardship isn't just suffering, it's revelation. It reveals whether your life is built on surface-level support or deep internal strength. It shows you whether your foundation is made of opinions or principles, whether your confidence depends on outcomes or identity. You don't rise because life is easy. You rise because something unseen inside you refuses to collapse. And once you understand that, you stop chasing external proof of worth. You stop begging circumstances to validate you. You start strengthening the forces that matter most. You protect your mindset. You train your focus. You choose integrity even when it costs you something. Because you know now, what holds you together won't always be visible, but it must always be strong. That's why two people can face the same storm, and one breaks while the other stands. Same pressure, same chaos. Different internal forces. One relies on what can be seen. The other trusts what has been built within. So if you're in a season where things feel unstable, don't panic. Don't mistake the absence of visible support for weakness. This might be the very moment when your unseen strength is doing its most important work, because when everything you can see starts to shake, what you can't see is what decides whether you fall or rise. And once you begin to understand that invisible forces are doing the real work, something else becomes clear. What we call reality isn't about what things are, it's about how they interact. At the deepest level of science, matter isn't defined by solid substance. It's defined by relationships, by exchanges of energy, by responses, by motion. Nothing exists in isolation, and nothing has meaning on its own. That's not just physics, that's life. We grow up thinking success is something you possess. A title, a house, a reputation. A certain image you can point to and say, "I made it." But look closer, and you'll see that none of those things mean anything without interaction. A title means nothing if it doesn't influence how you serve. A house is just a structure if it doesn't hold warmth. A reputation only matters in how it shapes trust, impact, and responsibility. Your life isn't defined by what you have, it's defined by how you show up. Atoms don't sit still and announce their importance. They engage, they react, they influence what's around them. And in the same way, meaning in your life is created through action, not possession. Through presence, not accumulation. Through how you treat people when there's nothing to gain. Through how you respond when the pressure is on. That's why two people can have the same resources and live completely different lives. One connects, the other consumes. One contributes, the other collects. One understands that meaning flows outward. The other keeps waiting for it to arrive. And waiting is the mistake, because reality doesn't reward those who stand still demanding certainty. It responds to those willing to engage, to move, to act with intention even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Interaction creates direction. Motion creates clarity. Think about the TI. Your life changed the most. It wasn't when everything was safe and predictable. It was when you stepped into something uncertain, when you spoke up, when you walked away, when you reached out, when you chose courage over comfort. Those moments didn't add something to your life. They changed how you interacted with it. And that shift changed everything. We spend too much time asking, what do I need? And not enough time asking, how am I participating? Because fulfillment isn't delivered, it's generated. Meaning doesn't sit on a shelf waiting for you to claim it. It emerges from engagement, from risk, responsibility, and relationship. Even pain follows this rule. Pain by itself is just sensation. But how you interact with pain determines whether it becomes bitterness or wisdom. How you respond to failure decides whether it becomes a stopping point or a foundation. Life doesn't define you, your response to it does. That's why isolation feels empty, not because you lack things, but because interaction has been cut off. And that's also why service feels powerful. Because when you give, you engage with something larger than yourself. You step into motion. You create meaning in real time. The universe is alive because everything is in conversation with everything else. And your life comes alive when you stop trying to protect yourself from experience and start participating in it fully. You don't find purpose by thinking harder. You find it by moving with intention, by listening, by responding, by choosing to be present instead of perfect. Purpose is not a destination, it's a pattern of engagement. So stop waiting for life to hand you meaning. Stop asking for guarantees before you give your best. Step into the exchange. Speak, act, contribute, connect. Because the moment you understand that reality is built on interaction, not substance, you realize this powerful truth. Your meaning isn't something you own. It's something you create every time you choose to engage. And once you understand that reality is shaped by interaction, not possession, another truth steps into the light. Certainty is an illusion. We crave it. We chase it. We build our lives around the promise that if we plan carefully enough, control tightly enough, we can lock the future into something safe and predictable. But the deeper you look into the fabric of the universe, the more you realize certainty was never guaranteed in the first place. At the smallest level of existence, nothing is fixed. There are no absolute positions, no perfectly defined paths, only probabilities, possibilities, tendencies. The universe doesn't operate on rigid promises, it moves on likelihoods. And yet, somehow, order still emerges, structure still forms, life still unfolds. That alone should tell us something powerful. If the universe itself can function without certainty, why do we believe we can't? Most fear doesn't come from failure. It comes from not knowing, from standing at the edge of a decision without guarantees, from wanting proof before taking the step. But growth has never waited for certainty. Every transformation begins in uncertainty. Every leap forward happens without a full map. We like to say we're waiting for the right moment, but what we often mean is we're waiting to feel safe, waiting to feel sure, waiting to eliminate risk. And that moment doesn't come, not because you're unprepared, but because life doesn't work that way. Certainty doesn't precede action. Action creates clarity. Look back at your own story, the choices that shaped you most, the ones that changed your direction. Were they made with complete confidence? Or were they made with a mix of fear, hope, and a deep inner, knowing that staying where you were was no longer an option? You didn't move, because you were sure. You moved because you were willing. Uncertainty isn't weakness, it's honesty. It's the recognition that you are alive in a world that is constantly unfolding. And once you stop fighting that truth, something shifts. You stop demanding guarantees from life and start trusting your ability to respond. That's real power. When you accept uncertainty, you don't become careless. You become present. You pay attention. You listen more closely. You adapt. You grow. You stop pretending you control everything and start mastering the one thing you truly can, your response. Certainty makes us rigid. Uncertainty keeps us alert. Think about how fragile certainty really is. Plans collapse, markets change, people change, health changes. And when certainty disappears, those who built their identity on it crumble. But those who built themselves on adaptability stand firm. They understand that stability doesn't come from controlling outcomes. It comes from trusting your capacity to navigate whatever comes next. That's why uncertainty doesn't have to paralyze you. It can sharpen you. When you stop needing absolute answers, you become more courageous. You speak the truth even when the outcome is unclear. You pursue the calling even when the path isn't fully visible. You take the step because growth is calling, not because certainty is comfortable. And here's the quiet freedom in all of this. Once you accept that certainty is an illusion, failure loses its grip. Because failure is no longer proof that you were wrong. It's information, feedback, part of the process, just another interaction in a universe that learns through motion. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work, and start asking, who will I become if I try? That shift changes everything. So if you're standing in uncertainty right now, don't retreat. Don't freeze. Don't wait for guarantees that will never arrive. This is not a sign that something is wrong. This is a sign that something real is happening, because the people who move the world forward are not the ones who had all the answers. They're the ones who had the courage to move without them. And the moment you stop needing certainty to begin is the moment you become unstoppable. And once you let go of the need for certainty, you begin to notice something else that's been true all along. Nothing is ever truly still, even when it looks quiet, even when it feels like nothing is happening. The universe doesn't pause, it moves constantly, relentlessly, and most of that movement happens beyond what the eye can see. At the smallest level of existence, particles vibrate, always. There is no such thing as absolute stillness. What we call calm is just motion we haven't learned to detect yet. Energy hums beneath the surface of everything. And if that's how reality works, then the seasons of your life that feel stagnant aren't empty pauses. They're silent motion. We misunderstand stillness because we're trained to measure progress by noise, by results, by visible change, by applause. If there's no announcement, no reward, no obvious shift, we assume we're stuck. But growth doesn't ask for permission to be quiet. It does its most important work in places where no one is watching. Think about a seed in the ground. From the outside it looks buried, forgotten, motionless, but beneath the soil everything is happening. Roots are forming, strength is developing, direction is being decided, and none of it makes a sound. If you dig it up too early because you think nothing is happening, you kill the very process you were waiting for. Life works the same way. There are seasons when you're doing the work and seeing nothing, showing up and hearing no applause, being disciplined while the results lag behind. And in those moments, doubt creeps in. You start questioning your direction, your timing, yourself. But what you don't see is the internal alignment taking place, the resilience being built, the clarity forming quietly through repetition. Motion doesn't always look like momentum. Sometimes motion looks like patience, like consistency, like choosing the same healthy habit again and again without immediate reward, like staying faithful to a vision that hasn't revealed itself yet, like learning, failing, adjusting, and continuing without drama. We live in a world addicted to instant feedback. But the universe doesn't rush, and the people who last don't either. You don't become strong the moment you lift the weight. You become strong in the recovery, in the repetition, in the unseen adaptation that happens when no one's counting. You don't become wise in the moment of applause. You become wise in the quiet moments when you reflect, listen, and integrate what life has taught you. Progress that lasts is almost always invisible at first, and that's where many people quit. Right before the breakthrough, right before the alignment becomes visible, right before the internal motion turns into external movement. They mistake silence for stagnation. But silence is often the sound of something important being built. So if you're in a season where life feels quiet, don't rush it. Don't disrespect the process. Don't abandon the work because the results haven't announced themselves yet. Trust the motion beneath the surface, because when the moment comes, and it always does, everything that was forming in silence will move at once. The doors open quickly, the opportunities align suddenly, and people call it luck, but you'll know better. You'll know what looked like stillness was actually preparation in motion. And when you finally step into that moment, you'll understand this truth. Nothing was ever standing still. You were becoming, and as you begin to recognize that everything is always in motion, another realization settles in. How you look at the world shapes what the world becomes for you. Observation is not passive. Awareness is not neutral. At the deepest levels of reality, the act of observing changes the outcome. And once you understand that, you stop seeing attention as something small. You realize it's one of the most powerful forces you have. What you focus on grows, not because of magic, but because attention directs energy. When you give something your awareness, you interact with it, you influence it, you give it weight, and life responds accordingly. Think about how two people can experience the same day, the same circumstances, the same challenges, and walk away with completely different realities. One sees obstacles, the other sees opportunities. One sees rejection, the other sees redirection. The difference isn't the event, it's the lens. Your mind is not just recording reality, it's shaping it. When you wake up looking for problems, you'll find them everywhere. When you wake up looking for growth, lessons start revealing themselves. When you constantly scan for threats, life feels hostile. When you scan for meaning, life starts speaking back. That's not denial, that's discipline. Awareness is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. You can train your mind to dwell on what strengthens you instead of what drains you. You can train your attention to stay with what you can control, instead of spiraling into what you can't. You can choose where your mental energy goes, and that choice changes your experience of reality. Most people don't realize how much power they're giving away to rough, unconscious attention. They replay conversations that are already over. They worry about outcomes that haven't arrived. They feed fears that haven't proven themselves. And then they wonder why they feel stuck. You don't get trapped by circumstances. You get trapped by focus. Where attention goes, emotion follows. Where emotion goes, behavior follows. And behavior repeated over time becomes destiny. That's why awareness is freedom. When you become conscious of what you're observing, what you're consuming, what you're rehearsing, what you're believing, you step out of reaction and into intention. You stop living on autopilot. You stop letting the loudest voice in the room dictate your direction. And here's the part that changes everything. You don't have to control the whole world. You only have to control your lens. You can't control every outcome, but you can choose how you interpret it. You can't stop uncertainty, but you can decide whether it becomes fear or fuel. You can't erase the past, but you can choose whether it becomes a prison or a teacher. The moment you take ownership of your awareness, you reclaim your power. That doesn't mean ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It means meeting reality with clarity instead of panic. It means observing your thoughts without being ruled by them. It means noticing patterns and choosing whether to repeat them or break them. Awareness creates space, and in that space you gain choice. You realize you are not your first thought. You are not your fear. You are not your past mistakes. You are the observer of those things. And once you see that clearly, they lose their grip. Life doesn't change all at once, but perception does. And perception changes the direction of everything that follows. So be intentional with your attention, guard it, train it, aim it toward growth, not grievance, toward possibility, not paralysis. Because the world you experience tomorrow is being shaped by what you choose to observe today. And when you master your awareness, you don't just witness reality, you help create it. And when you begin to understand how awareness shapes reality, another truth quietly dissolves one of the deepest fears we carry, the belief that we are separate, separate from the world, separate from each other, separate from meaning itself. We walk around thinking we're isolated points trying to survive in a massive, indifferent universe, but the deeper you look, the more that illusion falls apart. You are not an outsider here. Every atom in your body was forged in the same cosmic processes that formed stars, oceans, and mountains. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your breath, all of it comes from the same story. Different forms, same origin. The universe didn't just create you, you are the universe continuing. And when that truth really lands, fear starts losing its authority. Because fear feeds on separation. It tells you you're alone in this, that you have to compete for worth, that you don't belong unless you prove yourself. But connection changes everything. When you realize you're not disconnected from the flow of existence, you stop moving like you're expendable. You start moving like you matter. This isn't poetry, this is perspective. When you understand that you're part of something vast, your problems don't disappear, but they find their proper size. The setback doesn't define you. The failure doesn't end you. The criticism doesn't own you. You become less fragile because your identity is no longer trapped in a single moment or outcome. You're rooted in something bigger. That's why isolation feels heavy. It's not just loneliness. It's disconnection from meaning. And that's also why moments of genuine connection feel electric. A shared laugh, a helping hand, a truth spoken at the right time. Those moments remind us of who we really are, participants in a living, breathing system. You don't exist just for yourself. Your choices ripple outward. Your words land somewhere. Your courage gives someone else permission to rise. Your kindness shifts a moment in ways you may never witness. You are not small. You are influential, whether you claim that responsibility or not. And when you live with that awareness, ego softens. You stop needing to dominate to feel important. You stop chasing validation like it's oxygen. You start listening more, serving more, moving with purpose instead of panic. Belonging doesn't come from approval, it comes from alignment. When you align your actions with the truth that you are connected, your life gains weight. Integrity becomes natural. Compassion becomes strength, not weakness. Responsibility becomes empowering, not heavy. Even pain changes in this light. Pain becomes a shared human experience, not a personal flaw. Struggle becomes part of the process, not proof that you're failing. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this shaping me for? That shift is powerful, because when you no longer see yourself as separate, you stop shrinking, you take risks, you stand for something, you speak with conviction, you act with courage, not because you're fearless, but because you know you're supported by something larger than your fear. The universe isn't indifferent, it's participatory, and you are part of its expression. So stand tall, breathe deep, move forward with intention. You belong here, not by accident, not by permission, but by design. And the moment you stop seeing yourself as separate is the moment you step fully into your power. And after everything you've heard about emptiness, unseen forces, interaction, uncertainty, motion, awareness, and connection, it all leads to one final truth that ties it together. Wonder is not weakness, wonder is strength. It's the highest form of intelligence there is. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught to trade curiosity for certainty, to stop asking questions and start defending answers, to believe that confidence means having it all figured out. But the universe doesn't reward arrogance. It responds to curiosity. It opens itself to those who approach it with humility and awe. The most powerful minds never lost their sense of wonder. They didn't rush to conclusions. They stayed fascinated. They stayed open. They stayed willing to say, I don't know, yet wonder keeps you alive. The moment you think you've got everything figured out, growth stops, learning stops, listening stops. But when you allow yourself to be curious again, about life, about people, about yourself, you re-enter motion. You become flexible, you become teachable, and teachable people don't stagnate. Think about children. They don't experience the world through certainty. They experience it through curiosity. Every sound, every question, every moment is an invitation to explore. That's not immaturity, that's genius. That's a mind unafraid of the unknown. As adults, we often lose that. We replace wonder with routine. We replace curiosity with control. We stop asking why and start saying that's just how it is. And slowly, life becomes smaller. But wonder expands it again. When you approach life with curiosity instead of fear, uncertainty becomes interesting instead of threatening. Failure becomes feedback instead of shame. Differences become lessons instead of divisions. You stop needing the universe to behave. You start wanting to understand it. Wonder doesn't mean passivity. It means engagement. It means paying attention. It means standing in front of existence and saying, "There's more here. Let me learn." That attitude changes everything. It changes how you handle success. You stay grounded. It changes how you handle failure. You stay open. It changes how you handle people. You stay compassionate. It changes how you handle yourself. You stay growing. Wonder keeps ego in check. It reminds you that no matter how much you know, there's always more to discover. And that realization doesn't diminish you, it elevates you. Because now you're free from pretending, free from defending an image, free to evolve. The universe is vast, complex, mysterious, and you don't need to conquer it to belong in it. You just need to stay curious. When life surprises you, wonder asks, "What is this here to teach me?" When plans fall apart, wonder asks, "What else is possible?" When you meet someone different from you, wonder asks, "What can I learn?" And that question, asked consistently, will take you farther than certainty ever could. Wonder fuels resilience. It keeps you moving forward when answers are delayed. It keeps your spirit awake when circumstances are heavy. It turns existence from something you endure into something you participate in. You don't lose wonder because you grow older. You lose it because you stop choosing it. So choose it again. Choose curiosity over control. Choose awe over apathy. Choose humility over certainty. Let the universe be bigger than your explanations. Let life surprise you again. Because the moment you stop trying to have all the answers is the moment you truly begin to understand. Thank you so much for watching. If this video inspired you, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to be inspired from life for more motivational content. And remember, no matter where you are in life, you have the power to change your future. See you in the next video.